will be Daniel Hayes. Dan Hayes is an East Hampton Village resident who's been a member of the Poets Workshop for several years. Before moving out to East Hampton full-time, he worked in New Jersey and New York City as a reporter and editor for a variety of news outlets, including the New York Daily News, Reuters, and the Star Ledger. And he is the son of writer and poet H.R. Hayes. And without further ado, take it away, Dan.
Well, good evening, everybody. Like many people out here who live out here, I spend a fair amount of time out on the sand on a day like today. And so I'll start with this poem titled A Day at the Beach. Its feathered white edge contrasts the blue above, this strangely undulating mackerel cloud, a fair canopy over a glistening beach. The sun-filled water caresses me as I stroke rhythmically onward, propelling towards a distant breakwater, foamed by the incoming tide, flattening surf for an easy glide. Men on floating boards wait to leap upon the perfect swells. A gull on land struts imperiously. He wiggles his red-tipped yellow beak, busy with a hungry hunt. I like some birds more than gulls, and I've written a couple of others. This one's called Winged Victory. Why do I feed such noisy creatures? Their chickadee chirps destroy my sleep. Greedily they eat the food I offer. As my reward, I spy bird moments. Two cardinals sit upon the railing, he and she, beak to beak, a move I see as touching romance. Is this an avian kiss, I wonder? He flies away to perch upon the feeder. She pertly cocks her head to look. Is this a gaze of adoration? He glides back in beside her, like a lover with a bonbon, passes her mouth a tasty seed. 2 years I've put out offerings, attracting blue jay and cardinal, hoping to lure the goldfinches by. Now suddenly a pair appear, creating a rainbow convention, their wings of yellow joining the red and blue. There's one variety of a bird I'm not much enamored with. I call this poem A Dark Enemy. I lie in bed and noisy crows cause me vexation. A nasty, screaming, cawing flock they are. Disturb my sleep without cessation. What puts these creatures in an uproar? With all the trees for them to roost, they choose to cluster where I abide. Wanting to really cook their goose, I shoot at them to make them hide. Crows leave, but there's more desperation. A dark enemy invades inside my house, a plague from the insect nation. What's next? Will I find a mouse? The ants are crawling every which way. I spread out poison across the board, hoping to kill the object of my dismay, this nasty, creeping, twitching horde. Nothing, it seems, can ever stop this lot. I wish I could beat Mother Nature's plot. My Zoom seems to have disappeared. Can I be seen?
Yep.
Steve? Okay. This next poem is deals with the kind of nature that I live with. It's called regretful recall. My memories are like fallen tree trunks. They cannot be resuscitated. They flicker through my brain, jittery as light through an old projector, flashing strobe-like, disturbing sleep, replaying a jagged recall, spinning recollected failure, wishing I had won that battle when I never fought it. Still, had I attacked that foe, would I have been happier or left remorseful? My mind pursues the answers, a hamster galloping on a wheel. The times I did not defend you, you said you did not wish that I should go to war for you. And what would I have proved? A lack of cowardice, perhaps? But missing in intelligence, my examination seems eternal. Here's one about being out here in the woods. It's called The Chainsaw Discovery. Long past the point where he could thrive, the tree stood wounded aslant my drive. I set my tools to cut his broken skin, saw this aged timber and I were much akin. Like me, he'd suffered crack and tear, grown tall in my woods, enduring wear. I took him down while carefully avoiding danger from a shattered base that set him leaning. After his fall, I checked his length, saw then he'd not lost all his strength. Parts at his top had sprouted green. I thought about what it could mean. His reach for life could not suspend. He never wanted to see it end and fall at night. His trunk inside was fresh and white. Sometimes a woman can drive you wild. This one's called Emanations. So unknowing, innocent of the aura you possess, your mystical vibrations, no glance or movement, coyness or untoward expression. Somehow in an instant I am struck, animal fever heats my blood. I share and think of ravishment, hoping my wild imaginings will end in reality. I wonder how you stir me so. Perhaps our past combining left a sensual sensitivity. Or does your simple sweetness draw me like a bee attracted to the smell of nectar? Sometimes I write poems that express frustration. This one's called Enclosure. A lion in a cage. I bite at bars, try to snap the entanglements that bind and cut. A blind confusion, a sun too far for clarifying conversation, a ghost of cloudy memory, the onward path so twisted. Where is the knowledge? I wait for the sun to clear my mind. Sometimes I rhyme because I think it creates comedy. This one's called Be Very Afraid. Ah, the deep state, so dark and devious. It has me wondering, cowering in fear, hidden from view by presidents previous. Its adherents deadly as a poisoned spear. How is it such evil could come into being? This horrible unseen force in place, and I so innocent, I just wasn't seeing. But now I've been told of this awful disgrace. These monsters are out there, creeping and mean. Perhaps they have fangs and are dripping in red. If it's true, they can easily function unseen. I'll heed my leader's warning. Hide under the bed. This poem was inspired by some study I did for emergency medical course. It's called Anatomy Study. You cannot dance to a tamponade or lovingly engage in dorsalis pedis. Did those Greeks and Romans consider the romantic sound they would leave when providing medical nomenclature? Naming these parts for eternity, a framework, the basics of healing, decorating the elements of fracture and disease, letting one appreciate subclavian or mediastinum, and the tiny alveoli so close to our heart. This one is inspired by a view in San Francisco. It's called High Point. Together we stood then, that day in San Francisco, high atop Coit Tower, my arm around you, the sunlit city below, a glittering bay, a busy waterfront. That fixed memory stands, somehow my favorite, with decades for selection. The happiest recollection, us above it all, no words spoken, my heart filled with mute enjoyment beside the woman I love. Sometimes one writes a poem about one's age. This one's called Reality's Face. I inherit a house with mirrors. Reflect each morning the damage of time. Once stalwart body, now bending with age. Tight flesh, wrinkled, lean turned slack. Puffed out belly, white and doughy. Thin black hair, now pale and thin. A sight my adolescent mind can't recognize. Where is the man who once ran a marathon? Not this elder who stares at me. Reflection aghast at what he sees. Staring above the pills and toothpaste. Only a shower can fog away this vision. I am perturbed as he. This one is called Machines of Darkness. Computers infest the world with glowing screens peered at by millions, spawned in 1938 to parse numbers, used by a savvy few then to crack codes, then simplified to infect us, this evil siren spreading, pandemic of the mind, conjoined with fiendish fabrications, internet monsters, Facebook, Twitter, spilling boundless deceit with bits of truth. Sounds and images penetrate minds, ears, eyeballs, a robotic monster spirit, hidden in the ether world, ignores user commands, develops insane glitches, provokes shouted curses, makes strange changes, erases carefully ordered words, jumbles paragraphs, flips nonsense into text, tied by chains of commerce and custom. This electronic ogre holds me. 50 years now of frustrated, wasted hours. Like so many in this universe, I cannot break the bond. This one's called Tides of Togetherness. So close we lie, I feel your every exhalation, regular as waves caressing the beach. On a calm day, a soft and smooth progression, I cherish this continuum, far from the beat of a roughened ocean. Let's keep our wild moments far from the tempo of a crashing sea. I will hope that with every breath you take. If any of you have grandchildren, you might be inspired to write a poem. This one's called The Ride. Long-legged and smiling, she pedals heedless on desert paths, laughing effortless, cajoling a grandfather to plunge down trails across deep gullies. With daring and enthusiasm, she enjoys her majority with a bicycle. Life is good, she says, a woman child insisting in her right to ride helmetless, fearless and silly, yet sometimes mature, so brave and determined, no longer the infant once rested on my chest. Do I still have time?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. This one was inspired by a bad blind date. It's called Witch's Curse. Lured by golden tresses and bright enameled smile, impelled by loneliness, how could I know? As the clock ticked darkness, I would see fangs, endure poisoned stakes, thrust deep, pain, hurt, seeping, injuries not deep enough to kill, scabbed quickly with anger, and later healed with laughter, remembering my idiocy. This one's called The Soul of Invention. Reuse the Valentine, she said, but how can I send carbon copy endearments, put my ardor on autopilot, be a cracked record, repeat passion, passion, voice emotions identical to long gone by times? I'd rather tell of my love now, how my heart beats today and tomorrow still. This one is called The Killing. In the mop sink, the cricket stood fast. I looked at him, a moment passed. He is a bug, I thought, before I crushed him out. But then, too late, a part of me had doubt. What right had I to kill that thing? Act like a cruel, despotic king? Large as I was, I let my sissy side fearfully perform insecticide. And so, a tiny geometric part of nature gone, leaving the world without that cricket's song. This one happened at the village post office. The Encounter it's called. Aged and frail she was, walked so slowly. I paused at the post office to hold the door. I forgot my cane, she said, and stopped me there. I spread my husband's ashes today, out on the ocean. I'm sure he liked that. He swam like a dolphin. Then she passed me by, left me considering thoughts of a tiny lady alone on a jagged beach, glad to have found her beloved's resting place. I have one more. It's called It Ain't Over Till It's Over. Do not tell me summer is out of reach. Let the warmth continue on my beach. So many days I wish to swim. Don't say that winter's coming in. I'll enjoy each sunbeam that I see, like a cornstalk kissed by a honeybee. So what if chill is coming now? I reject the cold. I will not bow. When seasonal visitors leave the shore, I'll dive right in, enjoy waves more. I see this season as always kind. I refuse to let it leave my mind. When wind fills winds fill air with blowing snow. My sunshine memory won't let go.
Excellent.
They,
Excellent.
as they say on television, thanks for listening.
Superb. Superb. Now, big round of applause. Big round of applause. Now, our next poet this evening reading will be Carolyn Bistrian, and Carolyn is a local potter and artist in various media. Has been living and teaching in East Hampton since 1979. Writing poetry has been a lifelong endeavor, and writing with the poetry group has been a much needed challenge and a great pleasure. And without further ado, we'll have Carolyn begin her reading.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. Can you hear me all right?
Perfectly.
Okay. These poems are very inward focused, like my paintings. Along with the times of love and joy, grief and loss have been my constant companions. Oddly, they have helped me to see, to paint, to write about the compelling beauty of the intimate spaces between the stems of blooms, the sky between the leaves of trees, and the silences between the times of shared voices. The precious gift of alone times and what being alone allows: growth, awareness, and then the bright new surge of rejoining with the world. I hope this work will speak to the emotions of others who are going through these enormously difficult times. This first poem I wrote in a little nook in the hospital, waiting to visit my husband while looking out into an empty courtyard through a sliver of a window. I'm going to show you the poem because it's kind of an unusual format. I don't know if you can see it. Between walls, the flightless furled wings of the hospital where nothing will grow lie cinders in which shine the broken shards of a green bottle. The day Frank died, I needed Band-Aids. So my friend drove me to CVS and watched as I stared without understanding in front of the incomprehensible display, unable to make sense of anything on that shelf or any other shelf in the world. Anybody who's ever been in shock will recognize that. And a quiet day, sometime after Frank's passing. It's called A Quiet Day. A wide-brimmed straw hat sits atop a misshapen tree stump by the door, which is open. A gentle dog with a fierce underbite lies on an ancient deck overhung by tangled masses of wisteria just outside. Black tea brews on the counter. A cranky ceiling fan complains softly overhead in the empty kitchen, though the wind chime slung beneath it is silent. In fact, the whole house is silent. Even the TV has been left on mute, playing and replaying an old family video, a closed loop. Out in the sun-splashed garden, the other dogs sit patiently by the pool throughout the afternoon. One, the youngest, chews a stick. The woman who has dressed in her best beaded blouse, her golden rings, long paisley skirt, floats in a very, very blue pool, face down, as if looking for her glasses, which have sunk to the bottom. This is called Another Day. Another day, sun risen, then set. One dog calls out the moon from behind the clouds. This is called Spring Close Highway, which is actually where I live. Inside, a pineapple sits atop a stack of books, all fiction like my life. This is where I live. The bookshelf is so full of itself. It spills its layers, splayed onto the couch beside it, which itself sits plush and stuffed and dazed with flowered beaded pillows. Rescued stuffed animals from rain-soaked gutters, warm inside, and redolent of damp dogs asleep at the hearth. The house itself, where I unaccountably seem to live, spills its welcome out onto the street, where its very name calls forth the spring. This is called spring. It's a little bit grouchy, but spring sometimes does that to people. Spring. I drag my sinus headache out into the garden, grass overgrown and wet. Spring drags her muddy feet slow to blow a bud. Early ones, all yellow. Dandelions, daffodils, forsythia. Nobody looks good in yellow. Only spring, dew-jeweled, shaggy, barefoot, draped in blooms. This is a rainy spring day, very short poem. One more time. Ears down, old dog on stiff legs walks out in the rain to smell remarkably yellow dandelions. Another one about the garden called The Weed. A weed grew at the foot of our silver maple, so I went out with my clippers and trowel. But as I looked at it, grown so neat and proud against its tree, I paused. It smiled at me and said, "Look at me, I'm beautiful and full of light and breath and risen from deep brown earth. I'm sure you have come out to admire me." "Yes," I said, "I have," and put my tools away. I made the mistake of bringing a poem to a group of friends, people I thought were friends, and I shared the poem with them. It didn't go well. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. Probably everybody's been in that situation, not necessarily with a poem, but it's called Just Like Friends. They manage to act just like friends, but the act is thin and smells a bit like the skim on a bowl of spoiled milk. There's a chill, dismissive look that slants their eyes. Covert glances hover above inaccurate smiles. I fold my poem into an origami swan and slide it away into my purse as I smile back. Pillow. My first mistake was to buy a pillow inhabited by a large peach-colored bird whose dearest wish was to be somewhere else. Because I can't find it anywhere since the party, or wake, as people call it. And I've looked really everywhere, except obviously where it is. The trees in which the peachy bird had lived were a saturation of greens, which changed from pale spring to deep winter. And even they are all angled off the edge to nowhere in particular. There was no second mistake. This is a cool spring day, just when you're supposed to be doing spring cleaning. It's called Dog Day. Soft on my feet, her warm breath, her old gray muzzle. The house is quiet. Only a breeze from the ragged screen curtain moves. I should get up, chores to do. But the dog warms my feet in this still afternoon. Her ears twitch. Her tail gives one thump, then another. I watch her eyelashes flutter in dream. I just stay. The attic. I think we all have these too. I used to have a rocking horse. It's still there somewhere in the half-timbered attic of memory, along with a girl doll whose hairless skull was cracked and whose relentless eyes were always open. Up there, dust motes eddy in languorous shafts of light, filtered through crusty windows. Things are slow up there. Floorboards are in no hurry to go anywhere. And the cuckoo in the old brown clock fell asleep years ago. That's the cuckoo clock again. A friend of mine, or a former friend of mine, used to have an apartment in a house. One day left and disappeared into nobody knows where. So this is a poem about this friend. No longer home. Now the painted walls are only walls, no longer home to watercolored flowers or framed images of memory. No one looks through the bedroom window down into the street with the yellow house. The kitchen waits for something, but doesn't know what. Now bare of everything ever made there. The bathroom winks a conspiracy of quiet. Not even a tube of toothpaste remains. The last step echoes on the stair. Floorboards shift and lie still. Even the dust motes slow to silence. A lot of floorboards and dust in my poems, like my house. Sorry about that. The dark comes on so fast these days, lies down over everything, as if exhausted from the day's bright heat. I swim toward the perfect palette of sunset at the deep end. Opalescent water darkens to lapis, glides like silk over my arms. I watch the trees disappear into the sky, watch the translucent flutter of a moth at the window, the diamond dance of fireflies. The dogs line up at the shallow end and wait. I relinquish the deep pool, a bomb of water on bare limbs. Lead my silent pack back into the warm glow of home. I fill their silver bowls and watch the last of the day go dark. And the last actual poem, my last time with Frank, my husband, in Hawaii. This is what I wrote. It's called Loner. Under the fringed palm, deep in its haloed shadow, I watch a careful chameleon lift one slow, fanciful foot at a time in its progress from green to jeweled green. Its hooded eyes blink in the casual heat of noon. I do not move. I wish to join with the creature and somehow become invisible, but cannot master the trick of blending in with anything. And that's it for my poems, except for this, which is not exactly a poem. It's just something that spilled out one day, so I'll read it. It's after death, after the death. The show goes on and on and on, no matter what stays, no matter what's gone. And questions sear the throat and eyes again, again, and yet again. And yet the answers still remain, and still remain, and still remain, always the same. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Excellent, excellent round of applause. Spectacular. Moving on this evening to our next reader. Our next reader will be Stern Slavutin, and a little bio on Dee. Dee took a 40-year break from writing poetry and is now making up for it. She recently published her first volume, which is entitled Wingspan: Search for Food, with over 100 poems, and it's currently available on Amazon. She's working on her second volume, and she's excited to share several poems with us this evening. Dee is ambidextrous, using both sides of her brain, as she's a financial advisor specializing in insurance and investment management. She has both an MBA in finance and master's in literature, and she's the president of Stern Slavutin II Incorporated, a boutique investment advisory and insurance firm in the city. She can be spotted anywhere in East Hampton when walking with Lee, her husband of 40 years, who sports what Dee believes is the longest beard in the Hamptons. Let's have a warm welcome for Stern Slavutin.
Thank you, Stephen, and good evening to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Stern Slavutin. For my first poem, I've chosen a light verse, which is about one of nature's most ubiquitous and loving creatures. It's called I Am a Cow. I am a cow. There is nothing I must do but eat the grass and gently remind the flies I prefer they find another ass. I am brown and white and very large. My clout determined by my size and no less the color of my eyes. My chin flesh arcs a vast dominion, voted most likely to succeed by unanimous opinion. The mother of four, I've been called a whore. My swaying stride, a source of pride and obvious attraction. My owner confides, he fondly drinks my milk. I polish my hooves a bright magenta to match the blush pink of my nose. I sunbathe weekly without SPF and meditate to elevate my repose. Considering there's nothing I must do, I'm rather busy standing in tall grass, monitoring my chews. I swallow twice so my milk mellows and my fat-filled butter turns bright yellow. I would not trade my life with you. You speak to defend all you do. As for me, I only have to moo. In the preface of my book, it's called Wingspan: Search for Food, I have a quote from Percy Bysshe Shelley, from a treatise he wrote in 1821 called A Defense of Poetry. I'm going to read this quote to you, and after that I'd like to read you two poems that capture my inner pursuit as a poet. Quote, "A poet is a nightingale who sits in darkness and sings to cheer its own solitude with sweet sounds. His auditors are as men entranced by the melody of an unseen musician who feel that they are moved and softened, yet know not whence or why." Cashmere Night. I cannot tell if a plump leaf is on the table or if it is a withering thought. Is the hour turquoise or gray? This stillness, soft as cashmere, wakes me, beckons, use me. I rise and break the grave. At my kitchen table, I brush aside quotidian tokens of continuity, a chocolate sprinkle, a pale flake. As in the birth of child, I push for worthy words to fill our nostrils with first breath. The darkness invites this deliverance. An otherwise escaped convict, I am wanted for murder. But in this real light, the bullet slows, my shoulders lean into the table with my pen in hand and sprinkle on my tongue the stench of the continuous, interrupted by a dignity only known to songbirds of the night. Why I write poems. I don't want to farm the land or cook the food. I want to write the words that travel through city veins, coaxing something from you. We'll ride bareback on these rhyming slopes. Even without reins, there's no place we cannot go. Just press your knees into my flesh, and meaning will caress the emptiness that fills you. What makes me think splotches of ink will bypass your judicious intellect, arouse wonder in you? Nothing? Then why are you still here? Come with me, not by foot. Bring your naked self. Be devoured by a metaphor. How else can I seduce you? This next poem is about a subject that I know nothing about. It is a priest whose misdeeds compel him to seek redemption. Weeper, dancer. A battered mosaic, he entered her tent, his threadbare remnants all but spent. She swirled and she took up his hands. He clung and begged her for commands. Thinking could not provide the answer, so he journeyed to the weeper dancer. But let's go back to where this begins. After 55 years, passages thinned. The cathedral's shadow now unmanageable, his Savior's lamplight dimmed uncharitable. What good had come from parables, dreams and daytime each unbearable? Vows enslaved him in a cell of treason. What authority could grant him freedom? Indulgences swarmed above his grave. Could tears uncuff this pernicious slave from the black dungeon of oblivion that drowned his stillborn bones within? Thinking could not provide the answer, so he journeyed to the weeper dancer. First, tears for his deeds unjustified, tormented tears for fears he disguised. Tears for his hollow sense of shame, tears for armor against others' pain. She pressed his hands close to her chest. She impressed his need to pass his test. Tears for tremors of all mankind, tears for innocence he turned blind. He wept with her in a pas de deux, his threadbare remnants woven new. This dance performed by grand design, lavished tears by intent divine, poured saline silk on his naked soul, that split in two was not whole. Uncuffed to dance back all his years by the weeper dancer in the tent of tears. The next cluster of poems that I'll read are recent, and they've benefited from critiquing by the East Hampton Poetry Group, which is now meeting by Zoom, thanks to the library. I live on a street called Shadow Lane, so named by the abundance of oak trees. Aging tree. In winter, you lure moonbeams to contorted limbs. Night's light exposes gnarled roots. Yet you stand naked without shame. I see your stature. In spring, you lose a limb in heavy rain, burdened with mud, pink buds drown. You live with partial death thereafter. I see your wholeness. In summer, your green canopy crowns you, allows you to sway off your losses, claim your share of heaven's eternity. I see your majesty. In fall, you drop your guard, your flirtations finished, you preserve the bare essentials. I see your character. You have shown me the secret of your proud turnings. I have learned how the seasons train you. A yellow-eyed bird sleeps in your hollow. In my wintering, I want to own. In my mirror, I want to own my wintering. And a companion to aging tree, old love. Coffee cups and cereal bowls hold a half-century of round conversations in a pale ancient light. Archaeologists scouring for the origins of true love will find traces of our peppermint tea and bluey spaghetti nights. A couple ambles down the street, intrigued by the angle of her hip as it scrapes his leg, extending their rub like jazz notes. I believe they caress amid sips of velvet wine, then sleep entwined like we used to. Sometimes romance gets traded in, and identity gets walked off. Swaying hips lose their swagger, life gets less curvy. There are no keepsake whispers in heavy sleep. The diggers will find few jagged edges in our urns, filled with grace, poured with concrete strength. They won't find weapons. They'll discover us in a love song. When Noah and the flood showed up in this next poem, I was amazed. Our quiet breath. Back then, I could no longer hear my voice. Its laconic echo lodged in black granite was a lonely universe without a shuttle, but somehow I traveled to you. Now we elope in the quiet of each other's breath, while the pendulum reminds time we are prone to fall in love. Flooded in a wordless world as though Noah remembered with each pair he intended love's silence to drench us. Let's not allow our breath to fade. With yours, there's no need to speak. This next poem came to me as a vision. I was surprised how many lives were impacted by the scene. Send his body home. Perched on a rib cage, drenched by the open wound, The vulture's wings are blood-tipped. His loud caw proclaims victory. Eyes, sentries, guard a kill he knows he has not earned. The soldier's mother prays daily, but doubt invades. Now she must beg God. His wife feeds their baby. She plumps his pillow, wears his slippers, re-irons his shirts, searches the hints she can smell. A mother, a child, a wife, a soldier, a bird, a war. Shifting positions, claws slip deeper into the dead. Inspired by the 8 minutes a police officer's knee bore down on George Floyd. The steer. The steer rises, his first rodeo. Never warned, he will be leashed, then unleashed until he snorts fire. The black, brown, and white of him finds an opening, backs in. He wants his mother. He will not find her again. Thrown to the ground, hooves quadrupled in ropes, foam, saliva, short snorts, a wild eye on the leather cowboy boot trespassing on his neck. He doesn't know he's in a rodeo, there to please the crowd. Men with guns and spurs, raised on extreme excitement, taught to witness suffering, to impose it, then swagger, own the final say, raise a hat, squint into the sun, and say, I win. The next two poems are polar opposites. The enchantment of being born in America, followed by a warning of our fate. Uterine traveler. Migrating from a purple ovary, trailblazing beyond the passion that will make real my squeal. In a small yet limitless space, I somersault and flourish. There are no toothaches, I'm never hungry. This dark try-on room for souls is safe. Let me imbibe the saline nutrients in this tumbling, swimmable murk. A mitosis wind named future is at my back. My feet want to touch the ground. My first thoughts are of freedom. Tell me I'm not dreaming. When I'm born in America, I could be someone, own a house one day, train a horse to ride in rodeo, save a mouse from drowning. Our ghost awaits. No longer the time of scented letters. It is not cold, but I shiver in a season that will not pass. This is not short loss. Regeneration, generations are at risk. Once our only decisions to love, build, walk our daughters down the aisle, bury our soldier sons. We are good Americans. Naked eyes fooled by a flawed jewel, our global haunting hovers. We have crawled far from the sea, but our inch of history may drown. This is about the parallels of hunting, whether it is for food or faith. In the beak of prayer. The falcon's talon tightens on its prey. This chain of cunning leaves no doubt or leftovers. I can almost forgive the tyranny contained in the sweeping grace, the tunneled aim, the temerity, the timing, a form of God's attendant perfection, catch or be caught in binary certitude. I pray, hoping prayers leave no doubts, believing centuries of devotion contain a chain of leftovers, sequence strands of grace, another form of God's ordained perfection continued in singular certitude. We both hunt with perfect clutch, whether it be for flesh or faith. section in my book is called Summer Awe. I'm going to read you a brief introduction of that section and then several poems from within that section. Summer is summer. July is the 8th month of pregnancy, replete with expectation. August makes me burst. Even the greatest storytellers pale in their imitation of this organic exemplar of beginning, middle, and end. It is a poem unto itself. It is the pulse behind my hand reaching for the pen. It is freedom made tangible. Like elementary school children, we run in June. We kick off the sweaty sheets or bury our head when the mosquito's drumming spills into our ear. We butter and salt the corn and go with the flow. Subscribe to me. Summer rain slows my molecules. I become organic. Let dawn and dusk wander through the day, and soapy fingers love the dirty dish. If an acorn drops, I find a small hiding place where pleasure has been stored. If a bud erupts, I bow and kiss its cycle. Here I am betrothed to the wind. I will marry on the wing of a bird, then sleep on the brown earth, pulling close its damp moss coverlet. In this marriage bed, a dream subscribes me to myself. This poem was inspired by those evenings when the moon and the sun share the sky. Summer's glove. When August met September, the moon rose with the sun, bathed in radiant cleavage, twin cupids coerced time. When August met September, turtles courted roses with melodies so ripe the petals fanned their blush. When August met September, Romeo and Juliet survived. Love denied death's slumber, only life could wear this glove. When August met September, queens dined with the moths on doily leaves of lace woven for their cloth. When August met September, we all wore summer's glove for a tambourine of time. We were summer's love. Let it still be August. Slow the spinning planet so humid nights can hold the stars. The moon still looks for lovers asleep in grass-strewn dunes. Tides now mark the time, the blooms have left to cling. The worm is warm and soil, Mobius to be touched. Coy infinity wakens me, contradicts this boundary. The wrinkled light has yet to die, the sun still owns the day. If it cannot be undone, if the sphere must turn, then I'll not sleep from now to know this August as my own. August, say goodbye. August, say goodbye to them. Watch her lover flee in dawn, down the dewy mountain moor to the life to which he's sworn. The star's silhouette fading, so too the kisses on her lips he bestowed, as God does rain. On her skin they turn to mist. She captured his devotion, her hazel gaze transcended. The quiet life she led reversed with her surrender. As a flower to the sun will it evoke itself beyond the boundary known as beauty, just as summer's gone. August, heed your salient end, new life destroyed in one season. Her lover never did return. She fades for the same reason. And my last poem, August. Remove my makeup, then my shoes. Choose to wear a bra or not. Trot to the store for nothing more than a bag of chips. Quench salty lips with briny beer. Wash my fingers in the sea. Fill time with rhyme. It's not a crime. If it is, arrest me. Mount birdseed on the feeder to eavesdrop on the flock. their melody a canopy, my inner voice compelled to stop. Allow thoughts to sleep in month-long days. The E is vanquished from my mail. My breath reboots in August mist. I race only with a snail. Hummingbirds who come to sip at the sugar-filled decanter. I anticipate the rapid rate. Their wings emancipate the air. But with their hum and dart and dash, August, I remember, is followed by September. Thank you very much.
Excellent, excellent round of applause. Wonderful